Represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And good evening, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and yes, welcome to Straight Talk. How are you doing today, Mr. Harris?
I am doing well today, Mr. Solomon. Certainly apologizing to the listening audience. We had a bit of a technical snafu there for the better part of 30 minutes. Couldn't quite figure out what was going on.
I saw the guy, he came in, he kicked the door down, he pulled out the plug. I saw the whole thing, Austin.
He did. He did. Our technical staff just came in and basically smacked the board, and then that worked. So apparently kicking and smacking is a technical term to fixing just about anything.
Just about everything, yeah.
I just want to send a big shout out to our friend Dave for coming to our rescue and saving us here on the air. Again, we have no idea what happened, but the board in which we operate from has oftentimes been referred to as a spaceship. And if you've been watching any of the Elon Musk launches, you know things tend to go wrong when you're dealing in space.
Things have changed, that's for sure.
Things have changed indeed. Well, good evening to the listening audience. Of course, we are proud to be broadcasting on your radio dial at Bobo 103.1 FM and now simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and thanks to the ACT Cruise Tourism page on Facebook as well. Hopefully, as we get closer to the month of May, that'll transition to Straight Talk.
Looking at about 10 April, hopefully.
We hope so. We hope so. But you know what? With all of the blips that happen to occur, we're just going to play it by ear and be grateful that we have partners in getting the message out. And again, I want to thank the ACT Cruise Tourism folks for making that happen. Thank you, Ellio, and all of those who are behind it. Trust you had a good weekend?
Yep, it was pretty good. I was rather relaxed this weekend. Didn't work my butt off this weekend, but with two T's, of course.
But okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but I had a good weekend. Went to church, did a little church,
good for you.
Did a little church things.
Well done.
Yeah, I'm prayed up, so watch out, buddy.
Well done, well done.
Yeah.
Funny enough, there was speaking of church, there was an event that I was supposed to invite you. I think last weekend, maybe the weekend before.
Someone told you to invite me and you forgot?
Someone said, the next time you come, Austin, bring a friend. And, I have no life, so I only got like one friend, maybe two, and you're one of them. So I thought, I'll bring Ellio. But nonetheless, it didn't happen because my bad. I overslept. So I didn't go, and neither did you. But hopefully next month you'll accompany me as my plus one.
All right, so what's the plan?
The plan for what?
We're going somewhere?
We're going somewhere. I'm going to keep it secret until then.
Okay. Hey, say no more. Let's proceed.
Got to be a surprise. Indeed. The phone lines are open on this Monday evening. 745-2626 is the number. Of course, if you want to use our version of the toll-free line, you can dial our WhatsApp number. That's 928-2562. And from there, we happily accept WhatsApp voice notes or the traditional WhatsApp text message. Either way, both will be read and shared on the air should you wish to take us down that route. We kind of missed the first half hour of good news, so I suppose maybe with the time that we have left, really is just an opportunity to hit the ground running with the key topics of the day. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah. You start off with your good news stuff. So you're saying? Or
I was saying, should I do the good news or should I just skip it?
Considering that we had the plug pulled on us.
Yes. So start with the good news?
I think we can massage for at least about 15 minutes.
All right. Well, let's massage for about 15 minutes. Your call. So in terms of starting with good news, and obviously last week we would have shared this information with you, but last week was an incredibly busy week for us on the show. We had a guest literally every single day of the week last week. So I would say last week was busy. Was busy for us. And again, this week is not going to be any different. Coming up tomorrow, we will have Mr. Jordan Rivers again in studios with us for the CNP.
Again.
And then on Thursday, a new CNP member, this time from the constituency of Red Bay. Miss Dawn Thomas will be our guest in studio.
Awesome.
So we look forward to that. As we fast forward to next week, Monday, we will host Mr. Mario Ebanks, our good friend. He will be joined by Pastor Alison Ebanks, and together the pair will be presenting a public service presentation where the both of them will largely discuss and present their thoughts on the 3 referendum questions that are coming up as part of the general election.
We'll just be sitting there and listening, pretty much.
Largely, we'll introduce them, and we'll give them the platform in order to present their case.
Yep.
But certainly, again, for those listening to the listening audience, Straight Talk has said before, we're happy to be the platform to share all views on all of the issues. And if you want to, have your conversation here, we're more than happy to facilitate that. So next week, Monday, we'll have Mario Ebanks and Pastor Alison Ebanks in studios, and they'll be sharing some thoughts as it relates to the 3 referendum questions. And while we're taking a look at what's happening this week, I'm delighted to share to the listening audience that on Wednesday, the 9th of April, it is the scheduled leaders debate on the Chamber Candidates Forum. Well, Bobo, thanks to our, in-house team, has somehow managed to make that stream available here on Bobo 103.1 FM. So on Wednesday night, immediately after our show here, Straight Talk, coming on at 7 o'clock, Bobo 103.1, we'll also host the Chamber of Commerce Leaders Debate, which will take place on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock here on 103.1 FM. So to the good news. In the headlines last week, sometime we saw that a record 25,643 people are now registered to vote in the Cayman Islands.
What's that number again?
To 25,643.
All right.
That is an increase of some 2,034 more voters that were now eligible to go to the polls in comparison to the 2021 election. In 2021, 23,609 people were registered to vote in Cayman, and that is also good news. We'll take a little bit of sugar with a little bit of salt, whilst in 2021 we also had a high eligible voter number, more than a quarter of those numbers, some 6,000 people elected to take the public holiday but not vote. So I'm hoping that this time around in 2025, with our highest number of eligible voters ever, that the majority of those persons will exercise their democratic right and privilege and go to the polls and decide on their next government. We say you give up the right to vote, you give up the right to complain when you don't get what it is you expect. So the first step for voters in this process is to exercise that right by voting. And if you are eligible, we encourage you on April 30th. You're going to get the day off anyway. So go spend an hour in the morning.
That's what I was going to say, though.
Get your voting done, and then spend the day any way you like.
Here's how to win friends and influence people.
Tell us.
Because the question is, if you're not a registered voter, why are you getting the day off?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Sounds like an incentive.
It is. And you know what you get? Voters should be required to validate that they went to vote.
Show your ID to your employer, right?
That's right. You show your ID and get a stamp from the electoral division that you went to that proves that you did in fact vote. Then you get the day off and you get paid. If you don't do that, well, guess what? You get docked the day's wage, and you probably get docked the day's holiday as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
here's what I think would happen if you did that. One, you'd get more people registering to vote.
Yes.
Then secondly, everybody would get out to the polls super early.
I believe it, and that
so
works.
You can vote and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I say go for it.
I say go for it. And again, in the current circumstance, you get the day off anyway. Some government of the day decided a long time ago that voting day should be a public holiday, so that there are no hurdles, no obstacles, no reason why eligible voters can't get to the polls.
But then there's another thing.
What's that?
If everybody gets the day off,
yes,
that would mean your helper gets the day off.
Yes.
And we don't want your helper to have a day off. No, you don't want your helper to have
Heaven forbid you got to spend time with your own kids. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
what
because
is going on?
you need to go to the polls. But think about it, right?
Yes.
You need to go to the polls to vote. Why would you want your helper off?
Well, you can
So I'm back to saying you should have to show a voter's ID to get that day off.
No, well, I don't disagree with.
Okay.
That I don't disagree.
And the helper can't show voter ID.
It shouldn't be a public holiday for everybody.
Right.
Only eligible voters.
Right. Which means chances are your helper wouldn't be getting a day off because she doesn't have a voter ID.
Right.
And good because you need her to stay home and watch the kids while you go vote.
No, that's a very good point. And the fact that you raised it, raises the question. Okay, so what does happen on voting day when the whole public get the day off? How do businesses operate? Obviously, somebody's showing up to work and getting maybe double time and pay for being there. Yeah, I guess that's the trade-off. You show up to work, you get double time. If you don't, you get the day off. You decide what's more important to you. Mm-hmm. Again, if history is the teacher, everybody's going to pick the day off. Well, anyway, the good news is this time, 2025, 2,000 more people, approximately, will be eligible to vote, and I think that is a good thing. We want to break the trend, though, from 2021, where more than a quarter of those, or 6,000 plus people, decided to stay home, and just flip that around with those same 6,000 people showing up to the polls and exercising that democratic right. Mm-hmm. Also in the good news category, taking a look at sports, we see that Caymanian swimmer Jordan Crooks has 3 more national titles and 2 best times, as well as another world record at the 2025 NCAA Men's Swimming and Diving Championships to add to his very respective swimming collegiate resume. Crooks, a senior at the University of Tennessee, began his last hurrah in Washington State with a second-place finish in the 200-yard medley relay, charging past several teams on the anchor leg to triumph over all, but eventually met the champions Texas. Suiting up for his first individual event the following day, the 22-year-old secured the second NCAA 50-yard freestyle title of his career at that event. And then, of course, Crooks touched fractions of a second shy of the all-time quickest mark in the event, but later that evening stepped back to a lower end of his personal best of 17.82, leading his Tennessee collegiate team to a title-winning 200-yard freestyle relay. And in so doing, he made the event's all-time leaderboard nearly entirely on his own. Again, it's a relay team, so you got 4 swimmers, but his time not only catapulted them to the win, but had him knocking on the door of what is an NCAA record. He delivered 8 of his 10 fastest performances ever at that event, setting a new record, and again, adding to his fantastic swimming career. So, we just want to say hats off to Jordan Crooks. Well done. Now a senior, so he'll be graduating soon. Mm-hmm. So the question remains, is it more Olympics for him after college? Because he certainly still has a few years of eligibility left. Maybe he'll be chasing that very elusive gold medal for the Cayman Islands in swimming.
Hey.
So
Just might do that.
He just might. Well, we want to say congratulations to Jordan Crooks. Congratulations to his family. And certainly congratulations for the Cayman Islands, because as he goes, so too do we, the Cayman Islands. And, we get some positive press to go with it. So we're very proud of you, Jordan.
Absolutely.
If you have your ears on. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock now, and gives us about 9 minutes before we have to take a short commercial break. The phone lines are open, 745-2626 here in studios, or you can send us a call over our WhatsApp line by either sending us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. That number to call, 928-2562. I wanted us to spend some time taking a look at a very serious conversation which we see in the headlines today, and that is Cayman's potential rising debt crisis. If you open up the pages of the Compass today, you'll see a headline that says something like, as the outlook shifts from surplus to deficit, government may have to answer to the United Kingdom. Now, what does all of that mean? Apparently, the Cayman Islands government will be $81 million worse off at the end of 2025 than it originally thought it would be, thanks to an increase in spending that wasn't budgeted for and revenue-generating laws that were never enacted. Now, I want to take a careful look in these headlines and try our best to explain how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
You will remember back in February, the Auditor General, in her final report, Improving Financial Accountability and Transparency, a long-term financial sustainability, issued by Auditor General Sue Winsper, as she made her final curtain call, i.e. leaving the post and leaving the island. In February, she warned, and I quote, that the public sector spending has been increasing at an unsustainable level. And given the demands of the aging population and growing debt burden, the government might not be able to meet its commitments in the future without a long-term fiscal strategy in place. That report went on to highlight some of the things that are leading in the government expenditure, things like rising healthcare costs, which for 2024-2025 accounted for a 74% increase over a 6-year period between 2018 and 2023. Also leading these cost overruns are increased public sector salaries, which have increased by more than 50% to now $650 million a year. So we are paying our technocrats top dollar. And arguably, as they say in financial services, if you want to acquire the best, you have to be prepared to pay for that best. Well, we certainly seem to be doing that by in excess of 50%, as well as, of course, the rising debts consistent with what we have always known is a threat to the Cayman Islands, and that is the long-term liabilities for civil servants, whether it be their pensions or their post-health care insurance, which now sits at about $2.7 billion. Now, that's a lot of chunk of change. That's more money. That's more than double what the annual government budget is here in the Cayman Islands, more than double what we take in revenues. So if we had to pay those bills, whether it be your pension or your annual health care costs all at once, we couldn't. We're lucky that obviously with the pensions and the health care, there are contributions coming in on an annual basis. And so far, we've managed to allow the healthy and the living to pay for those who have retired and may be affirmed.
Yeah, and the outlays are a little staggered.
Exactly.
I'm retiring at a different time as you, et cetera.
Exactly. That's just the way the numbers work. But in February, the Auditor General warned that this is where we were heading. Today, again in the headlines, we see that the departing UPM administration is leaving behind a public finance crisis for the next government after an increase in core operational spending and a drop in expected revenue for 2025-2026. The minority government managed to turn what should have been a surplus of almost $55 million this year into a $26 billion deficit, representing a whopping negative shift of $80.9 million in the hole. Now, if people aren't careful, they would read these headlines and think, well, wow, what did we spend in 2025 or what did we spend in 2024 that caused this to happen? But if we do a careful look at government finances, which I'll tell you, I did. It took me pretty much the weekend to go through things like finance committee. In particular, I will tell you that the information that I'm going to share came directly from the 2023, 2024, 2025 budget that took place in Parliament, specifically in Finance Committee. And as you know, and certainly maybe as the listening audience will now know, we as a country budget in 2-year cycles. So every administration goes to Parliament twice a year, once when they're elected by December, and again at the midway point in their term, in which they establish and vote for a budget that will carry them through their 4-year period. But when I looked at the deficit of $80 million, I was quick to discover that a lot of this excess expenditure actually happened back in 2023. If you just follow me for a second, I got 3 minutes here. I think I can do it. Back in Finance Committee for the 2023, 2024, 2024, 25 budget cycle, the total approved expenditure for central government was $950 million. Now, this is central government, not the entire government, which includes statutory authorities and government-owned companies. That takes the budget much higher. But central government is core government expenditure. The actual spend that was approved in Parliament was $950 million. But the government of the day at the time, when those final numbers came in and was shared in Finance Committee, came in at around $1.3 billion. So approximately $80 million in 2023 was the overspend from what was budgeted for. Fast forward 2025, we look at the numbers from the headlines, we see we're about $80.9 million in overspend. So it is more than coincidence that these figures so very closely match. At the end of March 2023, central government was sitting on approximately $790 million in cash and securities and had a surplus of $235 million. 6 months later, in September 2023, the surplus went from $235 million to $111 million, decreasing by $124 million. So the country, vis-a-vis the government, spent $124 million in 6 months using just the surplus cash. Now, I'm not going to say whether it was good spending, bad spending, but just saying that was the total in the surplus. As far as the cash balances were concerned, for the same period that went from $790 million, as I mentioned, in the same 6 month period, that went down to $582 million. So in addition to $124 million in spend from surplus, the government also spent a further $208 million in that 6 month period in various things, resulting in an $84 million above budget expected number overspend. Now, why is this time period significant? It was during the Wayne Panton premiership that these cost overruns happened. And the headline says, so this is overspend plus revenue measures that never materialized. So basically, I suspect that because of the change of government, those revenue measures weren't implemented, and we are where we are today. We have to take a break, but keep it locked. There'll be more to come.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
It's Earth Month, and Cayman Turtle Center is celebrating all month long. Here are 3 simple ways you can make a difference. Reduce food waste by eating leftovers, recycle whenever you can, and support turtle conservation by attending our Earth Day Turtle release on Tuesday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. We will be releasing green sea turtles from Governor's Beach. It's free and open to the public. Let's make every day Earth Day. Learn more at turtle.ky.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected. As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Island Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Island Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want savings
Priced Right, spending less on everyday products is easy.
Spend less on office supplies, tools, and automotive products.
Spend less on groceries, fresh produce, and meat.
Spend less on electronics, TVs, and speakers.
Spend less on home furnishings, beauty products, and apparel.
At Priced Right, we believe you can live better for less.
To start saving, visit us at the Airport Center in Georgetown or at Republic's Plaza in West Bay.
For more info, visit pricedright.ky. Live better for less at Priced Right.
Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Artco Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. The phone lines are open at 745-2626, or you can use our WhatsApp line to send us a WhatsApp audio note or a WhatsApp text message and be a part of the conversation nonetheless. We are taking a look at what clearly suggests there is a rising debt storm on the horizon. But before that comes, obviously, after we go to the polls on April 30th, the next administration, whomever it will be, will begin their term in office with an $81 million hole in terms of government finances. And a rather extended level of national debt. Prior to the break, we were examining from the Finance Committee. These are details taken directly from the Parliament. If you've, got 3 days and nothing to do and want to go through the parliamentary debate, by all means do so. But all of this information is public knowledge. All of it is available on the government website, the parliament.ky website. But it takes some digesting in order to get to it. I thought I would save us the time by digesting it for you and sharing what I think are the tangible aspects that make up this story. So $81 million worse at the end of 2025 than the government originally forecast for. That is made up in significant overspend as well as new revenue-generating laws that never actually materialized. As we were saying during the break, over a 6-month period in 2023, from April to September 2023, the government spent $124 million in surplus cash and an additional $208 million in total cash on hand, obviously accounting for $84 million in overspend, or a total government budget of $1.3 billion. That's billion with a B. Now, I did state that in that same time period, if we look back at the chronological order, Wayne Panton would have been the premier, and it would have been the PACT administration at the time. After that, of course, the premier, now Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, took over the reins. But we also have to consider that in addition to that spending, the government also went out and took out $150 million in new borrowing. And that was anticipated to be used for various capital and infrastructure projects. So at the end of the day, as we stand here today, the national debt has more than doubled in this country at the end of a 4-year term to around $570 million that we, the taxpayers, have to pay for. Ironically enough, you have some running around there today on the election campaign saying enough is enough, and this is what we have to stop. I'm sorry, but leaving the party, walking across the aisle in the 11th hour does not forgive you or remove you from responsibility for this kind of level of spending. And I don't mean to make it personal, but it is the reality, and these numbers, they don't lie. And you have said it many times, my friend, arguably back when in a different life, that I never forgot it. The only true form of independence is financial independence. And we are very quickly heading down a road where that financial independence is being eroded. And we could very well, if we're not careful, end up right back where we were many years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, cap in hand, unable to make decisions for ourselves unless the UK approved it. So we had to go back to mummy to approve spending because clearly we weren't adult enough and disciplined enough to manage our own fiscal affairs. Now, this is troubling, and it should trouble everybody. It certainly troubles me. And again, I state this simply based on what is in the media today. Don't believe me? Right. Pick up the Compass, pick up CNS. I don't care. They're both reporting on the exact same thing. And these are all based on numbers that were reported on April 2nd as part of the Ministerial Gazette, which, again, is not new. Every election cycle, you get this sort of accounting record so that the country, and in particular the next government, can know what is the fiscal position before we move into a new...
28 days before election?
Exactly, until we move into a new election cycle. So as we stand, national debt sitting at $570 million. That's million with an M, over $500 million. And that's troubling. It is even more troubling when you take into consideration what Ellio and I have been discussing over the last 2 weeks. You will recall we had a very enlightening conversation with Mr. Tony Travers, taking a look at the country's bread and butter, a.k.a. the goose that lays the golden egg, financial services.
Yep.
And the changes that were made to beneficial ownership, going from a private beneficial ownership platform, which was available to all law enforcement, therefore enabling anyone within the legal framework to make legitimate claims and thereby access information about beneficial ownerships, but stopping short at making it private and not public. Certainly that wasn't good enough. We are now in a domain where, again, in February of this year, I think it was, yes, February of this year, one of the last moves in Parliament were to add media to that list of interested persons who can access beneficial ownership information. And when we say media, we also have to consider that in today's digital age, that word media has a very broad definition. So that means anyone, from the bloggers to the legitimate journalists, can access our beneficial ownership information, whether it be a phishing exercise or otherwise, and access the owners of funds that are registered in the Cayman Islands. That simple stroke of a pen has cost us arguably $4 billion in cash deposits that were previously on hand in financial services. Again, we learned that figure from our guest, Tony Travers, who was in studios with us. That is significant. We give away, or we let go of, or we soften what has been the hallmark of financial services, privacy, to what? Clearly satisfy the needs of people like the European Commission, who had us on the gray list. Again, to the enough is enough crowd. And I group the enough crowd into all members of the pact and all the various government administrations that followed during that same 4-year window. Not only did we take our eye off the ball during that 4-year window where everybody wanted to be in charge and everybody had a spending priority and all of those spending priorities had to be approved, which really is the first time in the history of Cayman Islands politics that's ever happened. Every government administration starts off the same way. Every member gets elected. They got elected based on promises, and they want to keep those promises. but in a disciplined governmental format, which previously existed, arguably under the parties, either UDP or PPM. They were disciplined in their approach. Not everyone could get all of their priorities all in one term. Maybe half of the government got what it wanted in the first part of the year, then the other half of the government got what it wanted in the second part of the year, depending on where the numbers landed in terms of the annual plus and minus, profits minus expenditures. And that was called responsible fiscal management. Somewhere along the lines in the last 4 years, responsible fiscal management went out the window. It's just not there. And again, numbers don't lie. $570 million national debt proves it. And the only people responsible for that expenditure are the people who have been in office during this 4-year window. You can't escape it. So while some will take this summary as being personal, it is not personal. So when we look at what are some of the unnecessary, if not questionable expenditures that took us here, again, something that is available in the public domain. I don't know. I don't think it existed when I was in government, 2017 to 2021. I think it may have been a change that yes, the cabinet minutes. I think this is something that, to his credit, Wayne Panton instituted when the Pat government first took office, and that was making the meetings of cabinet, and in particular the minutes of those meetings, are now available in the public domain. You go on the government.gov.ky website, and you can access the cabinet minutes. We accessed the cabinet minutes for February 25th, 2025. And in those cabinet minutes, we saw two things which jumped off the page at us. And this is probably going to offend the Scranton man, because I'm going to pick on the Scranton Park. But if you got your ears on, again, this is not my opinion. This is coming from your leadership. These are decisions that they made.
The minutes.
It suggests that you will recall the Scranton Park. In January of this year, there was a headline that came out in the Compass, I believe, talking about the groundbreaking for the Scranton Park, and that it was going to cost an expected $6 million for the completion of this project. Now, anyone reading that article would say, well, that's $6 million today. Every government project going back to the time when Jesus was a boy suffers overruns. But how quickly these overruns occur may cause you to perhaps cause your head to spin. So January, the article came out, Scranton Park was going to cost $6 million. But on February 25th, less than a month later, the cabinet approved a further $2 million to be added to the Scranton Park project, taking $1 million from EA 159, the waterfront tourism experience, and a further $1 million from TP, or Transfer Payment 67, from Sports and Cultural Tourism Program for a further $1 million. So taking that $6 million figure up to $8 million in just a month.
Oh.
Now, we heard on this program on Friday, I believe it was, from our guest, Ms. Carmen McField, that the expenditure for the Scranton Park isn't $8 million, but is in fact somewhere in the region of $9.5 million. And I wanted to find it. There it is. So that, again, if you missed it, with your permission, Ellio, I wanted to play a clip from our discussion on Friday with Miss Carmen McField.
Shoot.
Look at Georgetown Central. What has been done? Promise when Marco Archer was running 8 years ago, he put Marco on the spot and say, Marco, what have you done for this in Georgetown Central? Mm-hmm. Marco just looked at him. He hadn't done anything, and our people must continue to take all of this. Look at the frivolous spending, out of control, but our government cannot show what they have done in this country. No, it needs to stop now. Whose money? That's the people's money.
Right.
Public purse. Is it just to say we want to spend money? It makes no sense. Let's go back to Central Georgetown, Shaden Road. Let's talk about that park that cost over $9.5 million. We got young children that live in that area, or this whole of central Georgetown. Let's talk about all our Caymanian children. We should have used some of that money to train and educate and send some of those students off to do some tourism training courses to come back to work in the hospitality industry, because all Caymanians has left that industry.
So there you go. In her estimates, we add what we see from the hard numbers of $6 million plus another $2 million. That's $8 million. But she estimates somewhere in the region of $9.5 million. So there's a further $1.5 million somewhere that, maybe I just missed. But she's the candidate. She put it out there. But how is it possible? Well, I won't say how is it possible. But when we think about excess spending and how easy it is to go from a surplus to a deficit in a matter of 6 months, it is areas like this that show proof positive as to where these expenditures happen and how quickly they happen. Now, what is interesting is that the project in which they took $1 million from, the first one, Waterfront Tourism Experience, you will recall the Catboat Club. Just go north of the Catboat Club. There's an area that is fenced off that has been cleared. You may recall at one time or the other, the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Kenneth Bryan, said that was going to be the plan to relocate the craft market. Fine. Sounded great. Right there in the water, within the proximity of cruise tourism. That area was a haven for persons perhaps doing things they shouldn't do, but certainly was filling up with trash. They claimed it. They cleaned it up. And the plan was to move the craft market there. Unfortunately, something happened along the way. The craft market is now located on the former Tower Building site, arguably even closer to the cruise tourism experience. When it was previous to that, it was sitting on the Ugland House property. Right. Again, give or take, the same equidistance from where it was to where it is, but more importantly, within close proximity of the industry or the people that it was catering to, the cruise passenger. Listen, I get it. Makes sense. So you had a plan for that spot, but you made an adjustment. You budgeted for money for that spot. You didn't spend it, so you reallocated to another spot. But now we have a location that's been cleared, that's been fenced off, that's within the confines of central Georgetown. But here's the rub. The same minister has stated unequivocally the importance of cruise tourism to the Cayman Islands. He has stated unequivocally the importance of adding cruise excursions to our already list so that we can enhance that cruise tourism offering. More to the point, we see the grant that went out to 14 young entrepreneurs who apparently have come up with new ideas to expand that cruise tourism experience through excursions. Why would we leave a vacant piece of land vacant when we're looking to fulfill the overall arching issue of improving cruise tourism experience? Now, we can argue back and forth whether, a public park may have greater value to the cruise tourists than whatever they would do next to Lobster Pot. But again, this is where we see these expenditure items taking shape, going from what was $6 million to what is now $9.5 million. And that happened in a relatively very short, small window of time. And that's just picking one out of the group. Something else jumped out at us when we looked at the February 25th cabinet meetings that I think is even more troubling than all of these things. It's for a smaller amount, but it is going to an interest that arguably doesn't exist. If we look at the first page, page 104, it says that a grant to the Manna Foundation in the amount of $750,000 was also approved, and this would be used in the Assistance for Community Enrichment and Well-Being. So supposedly $750,000 of the taxpayer dollars went to what is listed as, one would expect, a nonprofit organization, because government doesn't give grants to private institutions unless things have changed. But when we look on the what was it? I want to make sure I say it correct. when I look at the over 693 nonprofit organizations that are also available online in the public domain that you and I could go look at right now, it lists all 693 of those companies that are listed as a nonprofit organization, 693 of them, and none of them are the Manna Foundation. So as we say here on Straight Talk, something don't smell right. Something don't pass the sniff test. Now, I don't want to go out on a limb and say that this is corruption. I don't want to say that. But one has to argue the question, or at least ask the question. If they are not a nonprofit organization, who are they? And why is government giving them $750,000? And what is assistance in community enrichment and well-being? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
So we see where it happens all of the time.
But it states there it's an NPO on the...
Well, it doesn't use the word NPO, but it's calling the Manna Foundation. And again, the government, when giving grants, they give to nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. They don't give to private for-profit organizations. Otherwise, it would be spelt out that way. I mean, again, I may be wrong in this, but I don't have any relevant experience. And again, it was only 4 years ago. Well, I spent 4 years there. And during that time, any grants were given to nonprofits, only nonprofits. But the government of the day has given $750,000 to an organization that does not appear on the nonprofit list, and we don't know why that is. I think all of this should be concerning. I don't want to, take a position where it's gloom and doom, but this is reality. And again, I quote my colleague because it was a prophetic statement when he made it many moons ago. The only kind of independence is financial independence. And we are very quickly, seemingly, moving away from that. Moreover, it seems that we have not learned from our past mistakes when we first introduced the framework for fiscal responsibility, first found ourselves in an overspending debt spiral, and which required the UK to step in. It was a dark time for the Cayman Islands, one in which I don't wish on my worst enemy. Mm-hmm. But it would seem that this current administration, and again, I blame the fight for leadership. We had 4 years of everybody wanting to be in charge, everybody wanting to be chief, but nobody wanting to be an Indian. And again, we see it from the headlines. The reason national debt has grown has begun for two reasons. Spending has increased past that which was budgeted, and new revenue measures were never enacted. And again, it's easy to see how that happens when you're fighting for the crown. Nobody remembers the small details, what the overall plan was until the end of the year when you wake up and go, what? The checking account is overdrawn? How did that happen? Wasn't me. Enough is enough. We can't take this anymore.
Is enough.
Again, 745-2626. That is my piece. That is what I believe is certainly should be important to the voters and those persons listening. I know my colleague agrees with me, but we do have at least one voice note. Let's have a listen.
Yes, good evening, Austin and Ellio. Mario Ebanks here. I was trying to call in on my drive home to speak to you about this topic that you're discussing about finances and debt and deficit and financial responsibility, or framework for fiscal responsibility and all that. Because I'm so incensed by the whole thing, a government that has borrowed $400 million in 4 years, more than double their national debt, and also tremendous spending, tremendous revenue, but tremendous spending as well. Very, very incensed by it. I know people have been talking about, well, we need to look at, controlling our population, looking at our environment, have some kind of balance on this concrete jungle, look at traffic congestion, look at work permits. But none of that now is really possible because government is so desperate for revenue to fund its debt and service its debt and to provide resources and services to to carry the burden of everything, that you really can't slow things down or manage things because the appetite for money by the national purse is so significant with all this debt and borrowing and whatnot. So it's almost like by design, it's a perfect storm, really, but it's sad, you know?
Yes.
And boy, this is a real cow cod for some political candidates to use to flog the incumbents, but I'm not sure if they're going to use that cow cod or not. But certainly somebody should use it if they know how to flog. It's very, very, very concerning. God bless and protect the Cayman Islands, because this is really not good.
No.
Take care.
It certainly is not. And I thank you to the listener for sharing those thoughts. And I think, really, if I would take one thing from that caller's remarks, whilst I agree with all of it, the demand, the hunger that we have in this country for a variety of things. And again, Ellio mentioned this, again, perhaps one of the unintended consequences of, single-member constituencies. Every constituency now has to have a park. Every constituency has to have, a civic center or a public gathering place. We see how very quickly the demands, ironically, from our people have only increased in the last 4 or 8 years and not gone down, and thereby saying that this machine called the Cayman Islands really can't slow down because the demands will simply not stop. And I will just add to that, with 1 minute, give or take less. When we look at this financial position and we consider the consequences as to where we are headed, we are not in a position where we can afford to lose any revenue. We certainly can't lose revenue in a shortfall from financial services, but arguably we cannot afford to lose revenue in cruise tourism either. So that is why I say when we go to the polls and answer that referendum question,
we're getting to a point of a perfect storm here.
We are getting to the point of the perfect storm. And if we do not remove, as Alan Chastanet pointed out to us when we had him in studios, if we do not remove the emotion from the conversation, but instead look at this from either a macro level, but certainly from a broader level, when we consider all of the facts, this is something that we cannot say no to. Because make no mistake about it, if the vote is no, then this project, this expansion in cruise tourism, it'll be done. This conversation will be finished, and so too will the revenue there. And what happens then if this perfect storm does in fact hit home? We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, but there'll be more Straight Talk next on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News,
the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Govinda Gill with the BBC News. President Trump has said he has no plans to pause the introduction of the import tariffs that have stoked turmoil in world stock markets. He said that since he had announced the new taxes, dozens of countries had sought to negotiate, and the deals that would be concluded would benefit the United States. But he's threatened to further escalate the US trade war with China, saying he'll impose an additional 50% tariff on Chinese goods unless Beijing scraps its retaliation plans and opens up its economy. Here's our North America correspondent, Anthony Zerka.
He believes that tariffs are the way to rebuild America's manufacturing core. I think he views this as something that he has to stick with, even through temporary pain, because this is his chance to change the trajectory of the United States when it comes to economic and trade policy. Despite the market turmoil, despite Republican leaders in Congress starting to criticize him, despite the executives on Wall Street starting to show dissatisfaction with the effects of these tariffs.
China's embassy in Washington told the French news agency that China would not give in to pressure or threats. President Trump has said the United States and Iran are having direct talks, adding that a high-level meeting has been scheduled for Saturday. The US president did not elaborate, but he had this warning for Tehran if the talks on Iran's nuclear program failed.
I think if the talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger. And I hate to say it, great danger, because they can't have a nuclear weapon. You know, it's not a complicated formula. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's all there is.
The heads of 6 United Nations agencies have appealed to world leaders to act urgently and decisively to reinstate a ceasefire in Gaza and allow desperately needed food and medical supplies back in. Israel resumed its war 3 weeks ago and has blocked humanitarian supplies and fuel for 5 weeks. After talks with the Israeli Prime Minister, President Trump said he was looking at another ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu said negotiations on more hostage releases were continuing.
We're working now on another deal that we hope will succeed. And we're committed to getting all the hostages out, but also eliminating the evil tyranny of Hamas in Gaza.
The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily suspended a judge's order requiring the Trump administration to return by the end of Monday a man who'd been deported in error to El Salvador. The court said it needed more time to study the case. Quilma Abrego Garcia was returned to his home country in March, despite a legal order barring his forced repatriation because he could face persecution. BBC News. Boeing has reached a last-minute out-of-court settlement with 2 plaintiffs over the 2019 crash of a 737 MAX airliner in Ethiopia. The trial in Chicago had been set to be the first against the aircraft maker over that crash and another in Indonesia a year earlier involving the same model. Terms of the settlements were not disclosed. President Volodymyr Zelensky has acknowledged for the first time that Ukrainian troops are operating in Russia's Belgorod region. In his nightly address, he said the main objective of the operation was to protect Ukrainian towns near the border, insisting that the war must return to where it came from. 8 months after their surprise cross-border incursion, Ukrainian soldiers remain in the Kursk region, which neighbours Belgorod. Police in northwest Nigeria say 43 people have been kidnapped and 4 have been killed after armed bandits on motorbikes raided a community in Katsina State. Chris Iwuka reports.
In the Sunday night attack, residents said that the suspected bandits riding on motorbikes invaded the community, shooting before abducting the victims. Some of the villagers were hit by bullets, leading to the death of 4, with many others injured. The police say a manhunt is underway to rescue victims and arrest the perpetrators. But beyond grandstanding, kidnappers in Nigeria are seldom arrested. Last week, a retired army general who was kidnapped from his home in Siga was held for 56 days by his abductors.
Astronomers have discovered a pair of white dwarf stars closely orbiting each other, destined to destroy themselves in a cataclysmic nuclear explosion. 160 light-years away, the fuel-exhausted stars were once larger than our Sun, but are now only slightly bigger than Earth. It's thought that the larger will slowly strip layers off the smaller. BBC News.
expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. You got to forgive me. I spent at least, I think, 4 years plus on that program.
We're going to keep practicing with that intro every time. You will get it.
So, yeah, I don't do it enough. Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, myself, Ellio Solomon. As you can see, my colleague, I'm not sure what he ate. I say before I climb 1,000 feet, I have a boxing bowl of my Wheaties. I don't know what he ate this morning. But either way, he's all fired up talking about the finance situation in the country. Yeah. I think everything making sense. I really don't have much to add to that. But if you have some idea that you want to add something or ask a question for clarification, the number to call here up in the studio is 745-2626. Again, that's 745-2626. Mr. Harris, I don't know what to say. You definitely seem to have captured it. I love your enough is enough.
Yes, sir. Like that.
But
you know,
go ahead.
I don't, and again, I mean this genuinely. I don't want to make it seem as if it's a personal attack, because it's not.
I didn't hear anything personal.
But these are the facts that are relevant to Caymanians, people who call this place home. Again, it has been stated time and time again, $570 million national debt. What do we have to show for it? What can we point to in the last 4 years that can somehow give credibility to this kind of level of expenditure? And again, all I can say is there must be a number of small items like the Scranton Park. Again, good idea. You know, I'm not criticizing the notion. But do we need a central park in central Georgetown? You know, yes, I'm all for public open spaces, but why is it that every government project, doesn't matter what it is, whether we're building roads or whether we're building a park bench, everything that government engages in always ends up being ludicrously expensive and then added to it, followed by ludicrous, expensive cost overruns. I don't understand this. Is it because we allow contractors to say, oh, government's tendering for this project, so we're going to add, 150, 200% to our markup, and then that'll make us competitive? I don't know. It has been, and this is where I think arguably you have to give the government ministers and government MPs a bit of a bly, because under our system of financial rules, checks and balances, but also distancing politicians from the decision-making process so that arguably people can't claim corruption. Ministers don't know who bidders are. Ministers don't know who's leading, in the offering. Ministers just know that at the end of the day, they're informed through a closed bidding process who won it. So then that leaves the question, who are the public servants and the, obviously, members from the public who obviously are nominated and appointed to serve on these boards? What are they negotiating on our behalf? And should we...
I think that's an excellent point, if I might just jump in there.
Please do.
Excellent point, and I'll offer some great balance, because I think that we need to know that there's more than just some elected official that's involved in this process. Just recently, without calling any names, it was a situation where you're hearing, oh, this is something that's going to, and let me just give you a figure. Just, it's a made up figure, but it isn't off in terms of its disparity.
Right.
Okay? This is going to cost $300,000, and then you're hearing, well, no, it's going to cost $6. It's like, what's happening here?
Right.
So when I'm hearing these figures, and this is more than just anything about a park, there's other projects. But if you're saying we're starting off at, what was it, $2 million? Or
$6.
I thought it was something like 3 million or something, and they should have taken from something, but it's 6, and then you end up at 9. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean,
actually, it started at 1.9. You were right.
Yeah,
it was a 2 million starting price.
It was like a 2 million. Right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, good.
You're right.
Send it a check.
No, you're right.
It's like 2 million and 6 and 9. It's like, what in the world is happening here?
Quite right.
I mean, and you have to understand that the higher these numbers go, I mean, the more grave the mistake has to be.
Yes.
It's not like, that's like you're going from $1 to $2, okay?
Right. Right.
It's a big difference between going from $1 to $2. Yeah, it's still 100%, but that's totally different than 800,000 versus 1.6. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Even though it's a 100% increase.
Yes.
Just 100% is a lot more painful.
Yes.
And you're talking going from 2 to 6. This is a 200% increase.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 9, it's like, what?
Wow. It makes your head spin.
And to your point, this is something that the public service, in terms of the processes that you put in place, the procurement processes, et cetera, stay away from this, Minister. You're not allowed to get involved with this.
That's correct.
You guys are corrupt. Everybody knows it. This is the attitude that they have.
Yes.
And they have the same attitude, I might add, to directors. Yeah. You're corrupt. Stay away from this.
Right.
You're not allowed to get involved with this at all.
Yes.
But yet you're somehow driving it from 2 to 6 and 9.
Yeah. Where's the value for money there?
We're not just singing our timetables here. This is like people's money.
Yes.
So I don't know.
No.
You leave me speechless, Mr. Harris.
Well, that doesn't happen every day, so I consider that a feather in my cap. But again, it's not news that I would want to deliver, but it is the realities on the ground. And
news
they say
that has to be delivered.
Numbers don't lie. They say, what is it? A liar can figure, but figures don't lie. Well, this is one of those situations. We get some WhatsApp messages. Somebody says, hopefully the people don't elect the same boogie nights that put us in this mess. Another one says, failure all around with this government. They never came up with no new revenue streams and couldn't make do with the existing ones. Nothing short of incompetence. Well, I won't say that's not putting too fine a point on it, but it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate.
Well, like I said, there's so many parties involved, but yeah, definitely it's a matter that we have these issues, and honestly, we have to find a way to deal with it. Someone wrote, should the government spend on cruise tourism if the industry is coming to an end? Example, no piers eventually comes to an end. I guess that might be suggesting, you talked about moving money from something that was specifically for cruise, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe they would have to clarify the argument directly, but saying, I guess, if somebody's saying that you're not going to have cruise, it seems like people aren't voting that way. Should we then have a problem with them moving it from cruise to do something else?
Well, again, I would just simply add a clarification to that. The only reason we will cease to have a cruise industry will be if we don't build the piers, because the cruise lines have told you we're not coming back.
Yeah.
And the ships are not getting smaller, they're getting bigger, and those ships will not be tendered. Again, the cruise lines have told us this. We have seen a decline in the number of annual cruise arrivals into the Cayman Islands year on year. I suspect 2025 will be the most telling, but we're going to have to wait until the end of the year to, share those figures. But as you have identified, we have gone from an average of 2 or 3 ships per day down to 1 ship a week. And those are things, that's the schedule that you can find on CaymanPorts.com. They give you a calendar. All you do is fast forward to things like May, June, July, our summer months. This is the cruise ship schedule.
Yeah.
It's
no joke.
It is no joke. So, if we lose one, the only way we're going to lose cruise tourism will be if we choose to vote no.
Yeah,
and if we vote no, I say to the public, given the national debt situation, given the challenges that I believe have yet to truly surface on financial services, can we honestly afford to
I will add
reduce these kind of revenue opportunities?
You made some comments earlier on about FFR, et cetera. I will just share very briefly with the experience when I was in office, and we found that there was a significant amount of debt and a deficit that it caused us to have to increase a lot of the prices, because I think there's people out there concerned right now, and what's the tariffs of Donald Trump going to do, and a myriad of different things. Well, we had to increase, and that would have been the time when you had cigarettes going up, you had turtle meat going up, Real estate prices went up in terms of percentages, etc. So I think we can look forward to that when the new administration gets in order to try to deal with this problem. Going straight to the phone lines. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Yourself?
Good, not bad. I got a question for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Ellio.
Yep.
Austin.
Yeah.
How are your children and grandchildren going to pay you off for this stuff?
Good
How are you
question.
asking?
I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out because we keep going down this rabbit hole of spending these kind of money. Somebody got to pay for it. Then you take into account the racking up of liabilities on pensions and health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a figure that nobody talks about, really.
Yes.
Right, but it's a real figure.
Yes.
Right, and it bothers me. And on some of these projects, I mean, I think it'd be cheaper for government to hire a QS company, okay, to deal with this kind of stuff and to see if the project makes sense and to make sure you keep it on budget.
Yes.
Instead of just signing the projects out, and that's most of the issue, right? Most big developers, they hire a QS company to keep it on budget and to make sure things are in place, that it's supposed to keep it on budget and catch most mistakes before it happens, right?
Right.
Meaning within construction, because what normally happens is they sign these deals, go ahead and say, it's $2 million, and next thing you know is like 10 million extras.
But tell me, sir, forgive my ignorance, but is that a different rule other than what, say, a project manager would fulfill?
Yeah, because a QS now will keep track of the numbers and everything else. A project manager will go out there and make sure what's on the drawing is built.
I see. Okay.
Right? A QS is a guy that would make sure the numbers match what you're building.
Right.
And you're getting charged what is being done and will negotiate on your behalf as such. Right? So there's an extra turn in the QS to go, that's not valued at that. That's too much. I'll be only paying this.
Right.
So who's doing that?
Clearly nobody.
So these are the things that they put these things out, and it's fine to build stuff, right? But to the detriment of who?
Future generations.
Right? Okay, I mean, let's take, for instance, and I talk about it. Sometimes I laugh about it, but it's really not a laughing matter, right? Spend tons of money on an airport. And mind you, I really like the old airport. We could go up on a waving guard and wave, okay? Greet people in, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Loved it.
Anyway, so...
But it didn't meet today's security concerns, is what I understood was the reason for changing it.
It off that nobody don't have to throw anything down, you know what I mean?
True.
Okay?
There were ways around it, you're right.
There's ways around it, right? So we could have still had that aspect of it. It's what made coming to our island unique.
Yes.
You can wave your friends off or see them coming off the plane.
Yes, sir.
Right? That was great. Then you come out there, imagine your son up there waving to your daddy at home.
Yes. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, that's what made us us. Right? And realistic, what did we really change? You still have to walk out in the rain to get to the plane.
Yes.
Okay? You're still getting wet when you drop your passengers off.
Yes.
If it rains too much, the building floods.
That's right.
Okay? So what did we really change for the money that was spent?
Correct.
Okay? That's mind-boggling to me when I go to our airport. Right? It was kind of obsolete before it was even finished. For the money that was spent.
Yes.
And then they say that the design on the top of the building is supposed to look like a turtle shell. Who can see that? Do you notice it?
No, yeah, yes, I do. Well, actually, the roof, I think, was the intention. It was supposed to resemble a turtle shell, but again, unless you're looking from the sky down, you really wouldn't know that.
It just looks like another airport in the UK or something.
Quite right. There's nothing to inform the person in the room.
I think that turtle sounds like an argument somebody threw to justify that. It's a cookie cutter from the UK.
It could have been. You might be right.
Yeah.
That was a decision that came after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, right? It's laughable but not laughable because it's a serious matter when we spend money like that and when we be frivolous with our children's future, because that's actually what we're doing. That's what we're gambling with, Austin and Ellio. It's not really.
No.
I mean,
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
We have. I mean, I don't look old. I don't know about you, really, on Austin, but I feel old.
I think it was you that said in the studio you got more days behind you than you do ahead of you.
Yeah. So
we all do.
I don't have any grandchildren yet, but I'm looking. So what are they going to have when and if I even get to see them What are they going to have left here on this little island?
Yeah.
What is going to happen? We are already the minority, and you're spending the minority's money. So if anybody that we have here can pick up and leave, then we have 25,000 Caymanians who are saddled with debt. Okay, so that is the reality that I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
Because if the country crashes, if everybody going to stay here, now I can tell you no, because a hurricane shows us that.
Yes, true.
Okay? When a hurricane is coming, how much people leave? Who stays here and saddle it out? Mostly Caymanians.
Yes, that's right.
Okay?
Those of us who have a choice, we can't leave.
Okay? So to think that we'll sit here and they're going to share the debt with us is a mistake.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? It's an utter mistake to think that when we have all the things in front of us to show us that would never happen. Okay? So it's mind-boggling to me. And I say, we have to go down the road where we change. Right? And we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I say if we need to change the government, let's change to different people.
Yeah, we definitely need to make some changes. As my colleague has said, I've always mentioned financial independence is the only true form of independence. I did hear one or two other persons say it as well. Again, they say copying is a good, sincere form of flattery, but we need to do that, and we should really be ending up that we have $600-something million worth of surplus.
Yes.
That's what we should be doing, not the opposite with $600 million worth of debt.
Yep.
Exactly my point.
Indeed.
Right? It's crazy. And then we still continue. I just read an article about we're in this kind of situation, you're still giving away concessions to hotels. I just saw that article literally today.
Well, you see, again, and that's another thing. I mean, concessions should ideally be something where you have something new coming into your industry. You need to encourage it. Let's say it was, what was that one I was pushing for with the companies that do the medicine? What's it called?
Holistic medicines?
No, that's not what it is.
Okay.
Anyway, the bottom line is that you're trying to encourage an industry. Even our friend here on the phone, he's talking about doing some farming. They wouldn't even give him the time of the day.
Yeah.
But you might give concessions for that because it doesn't exist. And you're trying to say, what can we do to help aid this particular market to take root?
Correct.
So that is what should be giving concessions, not hotels that everybody's building every day.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yes. Well, I applaud you gentlemen for talking about this kind of thing because, as you say, it has to come up. And somebody needs to give an open view on exactly what's taking place because it's not for the benefit, really, of you gentlemen.
No.
It's for the wider Cayman. It's for your grandchildren. It's for your great-grandchildren. You know what I mean? And what we're going to have here, where they're going to go, what we're going to leave behind for them.
Yes, sir.
So, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time.
Definitely no benefit in it for us other than, the only benefit you can get out of this is some more people wanting to put some licks on you.
Indeed. All right, we had a call, but they went off the air.
I do have a text. Good day, Austin and Ellio. Many thanks for having this conversation today. Are you going to read that? Go ahead. You read it. You read it.
Good day, Austin and Ellio. Many thanks for having this conversation today. It is very much needed and helps the voter to make a more informed decision in this coming election on who we could be voting for. Also, I might add that at this time, to Mr. Solomon's fight for the vote yes for the cruise berthing facilities to save the cruise industry, we should think carefully before voting a no for berthing facilities at this time. For if we do not vote yes, we will very much find ourselves in an even more dire situation if we lose the monies coming into our government coffers to assist in paying off this debt that is now facing this country. Thank you guys for having the talks, the very important and relevant talks needed at this time. Please keep up the excellent works. Grateful to that listener, and we do appreciate it. Have another caller on the line. Let's take the call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air. Nope, didn't decide to stick around.
Patience.
It is 24 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We've got about 4 minutes remaining in today's program. If you want to get a call in, get a thought in, get a remark in, now's the time to do it because the clock is ticking down. But we are grateful to the callers who have clearly listened today and clearly appreciate the significance of all of this, why it matters to us as Caymanians and everyone who calls this place home.
And I'll just underscore one of the things that you said, one of the things my colleague said is the fact that, again, we've had conversations with persons like Mr. Tony Travers, who is coming here and has shown us that regardless of how we might feel, we might think that the financial service is doing great and there's no problems, and it is the big provider.
Yes.
It is the goose laying the golden egg.
Yes.
But it is in trouble at the same time.
It is.
The pipe, if you like, the artery is constricting.
Yes.
based on all the things that has been done, not just by this government, over the decades. It is so much constriction. People know how difficult it is for us to open up a simple bank account. And so it becomes more and more challenging. And again, another blow again coming from the persons who were in charge of financial services, etc. Now we see about on February 28th, you had the changes to the universal beneficial ownership. Again, the implications of that has not really started yet.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these things, and again, now a vote on cruise tourism, this is a situation where tourism right now and financial services are only real true sources of income. It's our two pillars.
Yes.
I don't think that we can afford really to lose either one of them.
No.
We need to even be more vigilant and better stewards of those two things, because what's going to happen now is any government, bear this in mind, any government that gets in, they have to be remedying this problem. And in terms of remedying the problem, if you go anything based on the past, we can express and expect another increase in prices and goods and services.
Yes.
Because they're going to have to find this $81 million.
Yes.
All right? You got to fill the hole.
Yes. And
so
I think
more challenges.
I think I read somewhere that inflation for the year is back up to 2.9%. We have Donald Trump's tariffs to worry about. We have a potential trade war building outside of the Cayman Islands that we have no control over. But again, when you consider that 99% of everything we consume in this country is imported, to your point, what we should be giving concessions for is for innovative new ideas that provide us with some degree of food security. We had a guest in studio last week who's solar farming.
That's it.
We can develop what it is, 15 acres of land on 150 acres of land on an acre of land in a container. Come on.
But
even if that's pie in the sky, it's an idea worth exploring.
But that's the thing. I mean, first of all, like you said, probably not happening because it's Caymanian, but that is precisely what you have your concessions for.
Yes.
It is to sit and say, I need to do something to encourage this particular thing in my economy.
Yes.
You don't have to give incentives for all the nonsense that's already going on. It's industries like this, technology industries, something that's not happening.
Indeed. We'll recall with 50 seconds remaining. This is where the caller talked about concessions given that neither of us were aware of, but they sent us a link.
By the way, medical research is what I was looking for.
Medical research. There you go.
Yeah.
Innovation once again. But apparently the government that were once controlled by the developers lobby, the PACT and UPM gave $12+ million in waivers and concessions to hotel projects as for the entire term. So they weren't surprised by overdevelopment because, as a matter of fact, they kind of encouraged it. Now, again, we can have the conversation about, is room stock important? But that is where your money is going. That's all the time we have for it today. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon. See you right here tomorrow on Straight Talk.
Right here on 103.1 Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC World Service. The most trusted